Hello. The KLOG all finished up here. You know, I promised that I would talk about Skull Island in the last little bit of last week's KLOG. And so here's my quick rundown. I did watch all 7 other Kong films before I watched this one, which is sometimes what I do. I like to do a little bit of research and reacquaint myself with it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the other films other than never see King Kong Lives. It's an awful movie and it's just so bad. Anyways, it's called King Kong Lives and He Dies. I don't get it. Anyways, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. King Kong, or just Kong Skull Island, it knows exactly what it is. This is a B movie. It is nothing more than this big hairy gorilla going out and making a ruckus. And for what it is, it does it really, really well. I think all the characters are well fleshed out. Fleshed out. They don't go down the toilet. They're well fleshed out. The Kong effect is phenomenal. They've not made him like the Peter Jackson version, where in Peter Jackson's version he was just like this silverback gorilla. This one is like he's an upright. Looks very similar to the 1933 version, except updated to today's standards. So I liked his character design quite a bit, and he is massive. We've never seen Kong this big before, which he needs to be because he has to face Godzilla in a couple of years because of the shared universe thing that has to happen in every single franchise nowadays. But it straddles the line with just the right amount of cheese, with the right amount of action, with the right amount of humor. I thought it was all handled this really, really well, and it's probably, this might be sacrilegious, but probably my second favorite King Kong film. The original is still great. I think everyone should go and watch that. Yes, the effects are somewhat dated, but it's still a solid film if you can stand black and white, which I can because I was born in black and white. That's right. I have So if you watched last week's KLOG, then you know that I've decided to start this new podcast venture with the insufferable Daniel Melville Jones. So right now I'm posting the episode teaser because episode 1 will come out next week, although that'll be this week when you're seeing that because time works in mysterious ways. Right there, it's available on Google Play, and if I switch it here, available on iTunes. So you can go to at least 2 of the places that you can enjoy podcasts from. And if you want your ears to be massaged by rich, soothing voices, this podcast is probably not for you, but you can still enjoy it. I have an exceedingly busy day. You know, I just mentioned that I'm doing this podcast with my friend Daniel. I'm also trying to start this other podcast about entrepreneurship with another person I know named Alan. I've been down here in a shared workspace. I also just filmed my Leprechaun video, which I don't know, it might have been a bit too echoey, but we'll see what that looks like after I edit it. And now I get to do a secret knock. And we'll see if anyone answers.
And yeah, they have a huge amount of desks, so if you know what, if you want me to make the
I was prepared to jump in as well. I appreciate it. Vincent, the pizza button.
It's a very busy day today. As you can see, I've been running around all over the place. I just finished looking at a artist space that might be good for this podcasting video making place that I keep threatening to do. He says in an existential panic. Anyways, a lot of coffee meetings and stuff like that today. Got to meet up and catch up with a good friend of mine, Justin, over Vietnamese food. I'm gonna go have some coffee here because, well, tea. Because it's either drive all the way home, stay there for like 15 minutes, and drive all the way back down to the south here of the city. And so I'm just gonna stick here, do some work in the coffee place, and then go and take a look at where my networking event might be happening at. So magic is happening today. All right, time for a tale as old as time. As I wait for my water to boil here, I wanted to talk a little bit about Beauty and the Beast. If you don't know, back in the 80s, Disney was not in a good way. It was making kind of crappy animated films. Shout out to Oliver and Company if you remember it. But it wasn't doing financially well at all. And that all changed in 1989 when The Little Mermaid came out. And then right after that came Beauty and the Beast, the very first movie ever to be nominated for Best Picture that was also an animated film. It was a big deal. I can remember going and watching this film and being entirely transported. This was a heroine that was a reader like me, who seemed to be empathetic like me. I just really identified with that character. And the music and everything, it was all in this really great package. I just really, really love it. And Angela Lansbury, who is the voice of Mrs. Potts, will always be that emotional anchor for me. Her singing of Beauty and the Beast, which is so funny, the song Beauty and the Beast, is funny because she had no intention of singing in the movie. They kind of forced her or prodded her, like, just try singing the song once, and she nailed it, and it went on to win the Best Song Award at the Oscars that year. It's just a special movie. I've never watched it. I'm watching it again because of the live-action movie coming out tomorrow, which I'm not that big of a fan of Disney remaking all their movies in live action, but I'm hoping that it's going to be great. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think about Beauty and the Beast. Of course, I was, unbeknownst to me, all this shenanigans happening in the 80s before I went and saw it. This is me doing research afterwards. I just like the movies. I just love the movies. Boil faster.
And greatest pleasure that we welcome you tonight. And now,
you can't have too much Lansbury. So good. I still think it holds up quite a bit. Some stray observations from just a lone white male in the year 2017. It does seem weird that this all takes place in France and only 2 characters have French accents. We'll let that slide. Angela Lansbury, still good. The animation is top notch. That might be because of the Blu-ray transfer that they have on it too. And Tony Jay, he's only in it for like a small little fraction of a second. He also voices Frollo in Hunchback of Notre Dame, but he's the guy who wants to take Belle's father to the insane asylum. I'm not even joking when the guy gives me an eargasm. I could have him talk to me all day long. It's great. Anyways, if you haven't seen the movie before, which if you haven't, why? But if you haven't, it's a must watch. So good.
Statement denying allegations it helped the former U.S. president spy on...
It's the Canadian way. Okay, moment of truth. We're off to see the Beauty and/or the Beast, and I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Don't know if it's going to be any good, but fingers crossed. This is going to sound like it's a paid sponsorship, and honestly, I wish it were, but this Landmark Atom app is amazing in that not only can I pre-book seats, which is true for most things, but I can also like pre-buy my concession. I can change it up on the fly if I need to. It counts down to how close my movie is. So, I don't know. I'm a big fan. Okay, so I just got home from watching Beauty and the Beast, and it's a fine movie. It's fine. But it's one of those things where you're taking a movie that is, you know, the 91 animated film, I'm going to guess is probably in my top 100 movies of all time. It's never going to attain those standards, so maybe my standards are just too high. I don't think so, but that might be the case. Let me start off by the things I like. Number one, Bill Condon, the director who does come from Broadway, knows how to stage a scene. Specifically in the musical numbers, he knows that this is a film and how to actually use that to his advantage. And I think that those are the moments when this movie feels the most alive, where it is orchestrated and choreographed in such a way that you're like, yeah, I'm in this action, and it's funny and it's heartwarming and all that kind of stuff. I think that the production design is top notch. in some parts of the movie it looks really, really beautiful. Where it falls short is that this does feel kind of like the sing-along version of Beauty and the Beast. We kind of know all the songs that are being sung, and so they're kind of like the B version of these A+ musical numbers that you know from the original. Emma Watson does a fine job, I think, as Belle. It's just that it's one of those things where her voice is just not as strong as what Paige O'Hara's was. So her voice comes off as thin, and it doesn't get those soaring moments that you get from the original. That might be a little bit nitpicky more than it needs to be. And this is the thing with any of these Disney live-action movies, I find, which is that there is I just said it was beautiful in some scenes, but in a lot of scenes I find that there's an ugliness to it. There's like this plasticity to it. You know, I reread the Roger Ebert review of the 1991 film, and he said that fantasy films, bear in mind this was from 1991, that fantasy films really belong to be told in animation because there's a fluidity to it. Everything feels like it's of one thing. And here, there's just an awkwardness to the CGI when it butts up against real life that it's just like, this doesn't feel all of one world. The animated objects are all like these weird gold blocky things that don't feel as alive as what the animated version does. So it always took me out of the movie. Same with the Beast. I'm not a big fan of how they did the CGI with him. It seems like I'm way more negative than I am. I think it's a good movie. Well, it's a fine movie. I would definitely go and see it. I don't think it's something you have to rush out to theaters to go and see, but yeah. Beauty and the Beast. I was whelmed.